Welcome back to another edition of the podcast, and it's our Game Week 9 National League predictions and, of course, general overview of the National League over the last week. As you can see to the left of me, I have got Paul with me tonight. Back on the podcast, Paul. Of course, you haven't been at the Wealdstone games as of late. You've been following England across Europe, even going to Ireland, and of course to the home game as well against Finland. Yeah, how was that, Paul? Firstly, before we get into tonight's podcast,
two very different experiences, to be honest. I went to Dublin with my brother, so as you can imagine, there was a bit of Guinness drunk and quite a long day on a Saturday, especially after we won. And then obviously I was at Wembley Tuesday with the family, so a much more subdued event, dead easy for England, and it was just one of those very typical games. And if they'd scored early, it might have been a hatful. They didn't. Finland held out, but overall, England have done very well over the two games to get the results they needed to get. And he's blooded a few players, and it just looks positive with a new manager coming in. It's always difficult for them to sort of take on, especially with something like the relative success that Gareth Southgate had. So, Lee Carsley seems a good fit, and I suppose he's really auditioning for that full-time role. So, and you know what? He didn't sing the national anthem. So what? He's England manager. He got us 2 wins, and that's all that we asked for.
To be fair, he's an Irish, isn't he, international as well. He didn't sing the Ireland anthem either when he was playing for Ireland. So, yeah, I think it's each of their own. You can't expect someone to be singing the national anthem when it's not their country, would you? But I think for me, when you look overall, got the job done. It just feels like these sort of games, particularly the ones at Wembley, the away ones I think are decent because it's a new place to go for those who travel. But games like Finland at home, I think for Finland, it's a brilliant occasion going to Wembley, but they just feel pointless playing sides like Finland, and they're probably one of the better sides that you'll play at times. Playing sides like Malta at home, there's literally going to be no atmosphere, and also it's just a bit of a faff as well. And the only reason a lot of fans are doing it is so they can get the caps up to get to these away games like Ireland away. And I think that was kind of the reason you went in the end, Paul, was it? Or yeah,
completely. I would have been at Woking to watch Wealdstone play at Woking, but my kids have decided they want to go and watch England in the World Cup in America in 2 years, and my wife and I are very keen to take them. We like America as a country, and not been to Canada or Mexico. So yeah, I've joined the supporters club this year, the travel club, and I endeavour to try and get as many caps as I can before America in 2026, which I'm assuming that England will get qualification for. Hopefully it's not the Graham era back in the 90s where we didn't make America in 94. So yeah, I mean that's our plan as a family. We want to go and watch England play in the World Cup over there. So I have to take one for the team, and every now and then have to go abroad and watch England.
Yeah, I can't say anything either, to be honest. My dad was in Dublin. I didn't get a ticket, unfortunately, so I couldn't attend. Anyway, I was at Hartlepool. Back to the National League now. A bit of a complex contrast between going to somewhere like Dublin and spending the afternoon in Hartlepool. Followed by that, we had midweek fixtures that I did attend again, Paul. Oldham at home, which was quite a big game. Did it live up to the expectation? Not particularly. We'll get into that tonight. But before we do that, please check out our sponsors, Cards Accepted. There will be a link in the description that you can use if you would like to purchase your card machine. No contracts or monthly fees, and you get 50% off your order if you do use that link in the description. Also, if you would like, you can become a member. You can use custom emojis in the live chat and in the comment section for your club. So for example, I think so far we've got we've got 1 or 2 Oldham fans, some Aldershot fans, and 1 or 2 Gateshead. We've got like 5 or 6 members at the moment. But those guys can basically use their badges in the comments below. So if there's an Aldershot fan who's a member, maybe someone who is a member who's watching now can do this for an example and actually use it for everyone to see. They can use their badge in the comments. There's also going to be other perks that we're going to introduce over time. Obviously, it's still a new thing that we're doing on the channel. And at the moment, I'm very busy as well. But like when we're doing our interviews, they might get early access, a few days early access, things like that they'll basically get if you do become a member. And we're hoping to implement even more ideas in the future. Also, please like the podcast. We've got just over 40 people watching at the moment, just after 5 minutes in, which isn't too bad either. Please like it because it brings more people to the podcast. It gets recommended more easily. It's easier and visible to see. Also, please can you subscribe? I think we're 30 subscribers away now from hitting 2,000 subs. I'm sure there'll be a fair few in here who haven't subscribed yet, so please do if you can. I think that's more or less of all the admin side of things that we have to cover tonight before we get later into the podcast. So we'll have a look at the live chat. And then we will get on with some of the topics because there's some interesting things we're going to talk about tonight. I don't think it's a boring week in the National League. Quite a few things have happened. We've got an interview that we're going to react to. Most people will know what that's about. Me and Paul have got different opinions on that, so that'll be an interesting topic to talk about as well. We'll put the interview on screen later in the podcast. Also, a team has, of course, appointed a new manager now, and we're going to give our thoughts on that too. And any of your topics that you would like to hear as well, please put them in the live chat, and the whole live chat, as well as ourselves, can discuss that before we get on to our game week predictions. First one in, guess who it is, Paul, before I put it on screen. If you had to guess someone who's going to be the first one in tonight.
Mr. Luke.
Oh, yeah. Perfect guess. Would you like to read the comment?
Oh, hello, gents. Hope you're well. Great win on Saturday against Barnet. Still top of the league, thankfully for now. Absolutely flying. You know the drill. No pressure whatsoever. Yeah, looking down at what I've got for Gateshead, and yeah, we'll see what comes up with their away game at Dagenham this week.
Yeah. It's interesting with Gateshead, though, because we talk about them every week about them being a surprise package this season and being able to maintain being top. But every single week, they're winning these big games. They're not dropping off at all. You know, Barnet they've beaten at home. The title favourites at the start of the season who've recently come into a bit of form. Eastleigh, who were second, they went and beat them at home. Going to places like Oldham, we've got high expectations as well, and picking up points there. For me, when I look at Gateshead at the moment, I'm quite excited, and I genuinely do think that they'll be up there come the end of the season. I personally can't see them falling off at all. Is that something you agree with, Paul? Or do you feel over time maybe?
I mean, who knows, Luke? You know, they've had to bring a goalkeeper in this week. I believe he came from the lower leagues, unless someone can correct me. And by all accounts, I've seen some of the saves he made, and obviously Dean Brennan's interview after the game when the guy had an absolute stormer of a match. So, you know, again, it's Rob Elliott recruitment has looked like it's spot on. It is only one game, but, you know, he's already saved them the loss of 2 points, maybe 3 points, you know. So if Gateshead keep doing what they're doing, then who knows, Luke? You know, I know we're still only 7-8 games in, but Christ, you know, they're just doing so well and they're just consistently good. And yeah, it's hard to see them not being in that playoff positions. You know, they do have to drop off a cliff. It's possible because of like we said, the size of the club and, you know, some of the restrictions they may have off the field with their stadium issues. But at the moment on the field, I mean, Robbie Elliott got manager of the month, didn't he? So very well deserved. And at the moment, you know, going to Dagenham at the weekend, I think that winning mentality will continue, and they'll keep doing very well and probably go into October being near the top, if not the top.
I think for me, and this is with every single side that's leading the way, what will happen, what I think the big test will be for Gateshead if they're wanting to seriously be competing for the title come the end of the season is when they have that first defeat or that rough patch, how they react to that, how bad does it go? Because we've seen sides in the past start like Gateshead. Halifax a few seasons ago started like this when I think it was Wild's first season. Might have even, I think it was before that under Jamie Fullerton. Halifax were top of the league after 9 or 10 games and ended up finishing, I think, 15th. Then under Wild, I think it were quite similar as well. The first season, and we ended up scraping inside the playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when Gateshead do lose 1 or 2 games and how do we react to that? Do they fall off a cliff? And this is the thing as well. I know there's another question in the out there about Gateshead where, well, because they're performing so well, Football League sides and sides with, I think, bigger budgets in this division even will be looking at the players. Will Gateshead be able to maintain the squad, be allowed players to stay? Can they attract them to remain at the club, or persuade them, I should say, to remain at the club? That's going to be what we're going to have to see in the later months of the season. Of course, it's still very early, only 8 games in. Kiefer's coming. Here we go. Luke, Oldham supporters have took your town again. Port Halifax played well. Referee crap. 1,600, not bad for away fans. Yeah, credit to your away support for coming. Decent away support that. I'll give you your credit. But as we always say, they don't get you the points at the end of the day. We're still unbeaten against Oldham, I believe, since they've come down into this division. And in the amount of times I've actually seen Halifax play Oldham, I've never seen us lose to them. But I think overall, for me, that match, I didn't think much to either side. If I'm being honest, I thought Oldham were better than what I have seen of them. Would I say they're much better? No. Do I think there's potential there? Yes. It just felt like you were probably missing the striker, I thought. And of course, there's James Norwood, who's to come back and be fully fit, and that'll be the question. But it just felt like, for me, with both sides, they were both playing long ball. It wasn't an entertaining game at all. I thought Monf was quite a good centre-half for you. But, yeah, it was a good goal from you guys. A scrappy goal, I'll admit. Quite lucky from ourselves. Maybe defensively, I thought you were a lot better than what you've been previously, but overall, was I too impressed with either side? No. I think Oldham will get better, though, for me. I could see signs there, but I just can't see them being a footballing side like some Oldham fans have actually stated. For me, they played exactly how I thought they'd play at the start of the season, which was hoofing the ball upfield. We've also had Chris who's come in, Paul.
Lattis took 1,500 to the Shea, but only played well with 10 men. Very disappointing. Still only 1 loss, but draws becoming an issue for the fans.
I think for me, when you look at that, the amount of draws that they've had, they're all 1-1 draws. I think, is it 5 of the last 6 games have been 1-1 draws? Yeah, Oldham then for you, Paul. We've spoke about it quite a lot recently as well, so I don't want to go on too much with them. But if you're looking, it's not that they're losing games. I think they're becoming a better side, harder to beat, you might say. But you look at those games all around, you'd expect them to be able to win some of those games, particularly maybe Halifax even, because I thought Oldham were a slightly better side, I'll admit.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. I know I've been down on them, and I actually had them predicted to win against Halifax, didn't I? They're clearly having an issue up the top of the field because they're not scoring enough goals to win games. You know, when they came to the Vale, they scored. They only won 1-0. It was a very even game. I thought they got lucky with the goal, you know. So even that win wasn't brilliant. And I know we've sort of had conversations with Oldham fans and had, messages on here relating to them probably being the better side at home in certain games. But at the end of the day, Luke, you've got to score goals to win games. And if you're only drawing games because you're only getting 1 goal, maybe 2, then there's something not quite right. And we'll talk about some of the other teams up at the top end of the league. It almost feels like there's a real lack of quality strikers in the National League this season. Real lack of quality. The teams I've seen play against Wealdstone, Wealdstone aren't the best team in the league at the moment, as we know, but they've not been outgunned because I think the other teams just don't have that quality up top. Teams are trying to address it. Southend have signed Macaulay Bonn and Hartlepool gone and got Gary Medine. So I think one of these teams, if they can get that 2025 season a striker, then it's gonna push them up there. Barnet are struggling without a centre forward at all. And so I think there's a real lack of that quality up top that's really causing a lot of teams, and Oldham's one of those. Like you said, against Halifax, that they were missing someone who could sort of be that difference.
I think for me, when you talk about quality at the top of the field, I wouldn't necessarily say it's even strikers. I'd say an attacking midfielder like a Nick Horton. I think so many sides are dreaming of that sort of player. And it's not just Oldham either. I think we speak a lot more about Oldham because of the size of the club, because of the expectations there, and the fact that they can easily bring in. You'd like to think maybe they'd easily be able to bring in players if they'd like to. They'd be in a better position than other sides, such as Halifax, for example. Like, for me, I looked at that Halifax side, and the way we were playing was we were hoofing it up to a lad in Billy Waters who's 5'6", and it's exactly going how I thought it'd go when we first signed him. I thought, yes, it looks a good signing on paper, but how's he going to fit into this style? Last time he was with us, we played attractive football that was on the floor. Now we're playing an industrial style where we're hoofing it up forward and then playing for the scraps. And I think that's something that Oldham did as well. So for me, I just think if you're going to have Billy Waters in the team, you need to either have him on the wing, which I don't think is his best position, or you need to change the style completely where we're trying to play attractive football. Now, for me, the problem you might say there, have we got the players to our disposal now where we can actually play on the floor and play, fluid football like we did under Wild? Because for me personally, I don't think we've recruited in that way. We've recruited in a way where we found raw talent that are just going to be structured well as a team. And I just don't think we're going to be able to play to Billy Waters' strengths at all. I think we're more in need of a target man. And if we're going to play in Billy Waters' strengths, then we also need an attacking midfielder. Now, Hottie could be that, but he seems to be struggling as well at the moment. And I think the big thing for me is losing Thompson Sommers. Having a big presence in the midfield who can, win the ball in the end and carry the ball forward can just change a team completely. And that's something that we're lacking at the moment. Scott High, I think, looks good for me, but he's not that player. He's not got the ability to do that, or the confidence maybe is a better word, to do that at the moment. And that's meaning players like Hottie are suffering because of that, because they're having to try win the ball, get the ball from deeper areas and drive forward. And sides, it's just too easy, I think, for sides to play against. We've also had Jake who's come in, and he has said, I'd say Dean's interview could be interview of the week, but Dorking are playing Horsham on Saturday. And if people remember Mark White's last interview there, he could make a challenge. Yeah, that was an interesting one. That one aimed at the fans. That was aimed at the players, though. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see that game, won't it, Paul?
Oh, without a shadow of doubt. I mean, it's the first time that he's really under pressure, isn't it, Mark White? And we were lucky enough to interview him, and he's a calm, sort of measured character. Yes, he's quite outspoken and effervescent, but at the same time, I think he's always been in control at Dorking, hasn't he? For a number of years, like 20 odd years, they've only been going one way. I think this is the first time he's really found himself under pressure, and he's openly admitted, he thinks it's going to be harder to get out of that league than he probably thought it was, and yet he's really struggling with injuries, isn't he? So we've got to see how it pans out. But yeah, they're playing Horsham Saturday. They didn't do very well against them the last time I played them, did they, in the FA Cup? So we'll have to wait and see. But yes, it's tough out. It's tough. National leagues are tough. Whether it's the North, the South, or the Premier, if you like, they're all very, very tough leagues.
We've also had coming in, we've had Chris who said happy Friday to you both. Yeah, for those who don't know, I think Chris is based in Australia at the moment. Yeah, he always seems to tune in. What time would it even be in Australia now to be watching this? He's probably watching it on the way to work or something like that. And then we've also had Dominic who's come in, Paul. I think he might be a Wealdstone fan.
Paul, what did you think of Wealdstone's lack of goals and the amount of injuries? The lack of goals is a concerning factor. They've always been a little bit of a concern for Wealdstone because we need that real quality up front, and it's difficult to find, as we know. The problem I've got, injuries, yeah, again, that's a challenge. But what we've got to start looking at as a team is Matt Taylor's come in and he's really tinkered with the side, and he has had to do that purely on the injuries alone, I would imagine. So I think he's still really struggling to know what his best 11 is. I think he favours a 4-4-2. We haven't had our top, our top strikers, our first choice rather, in Sean Darkwa or Sam Ashford for any number of games. Darkwa hasn't played at all. Ashford broke his cheek in the first game of the season after scoring, and he's been back and got injured again. So the injuries is difficult, but we have got a lot of players in the squad, and they're starting to find out what the National League is about. A couple of young lads on loan, they're finding their feet, and it's concerning as much as we're not scoring enough goals. Because if you look at the goals against, we're actually not too bad. We've got a fairly solid defence, and that's where the injuries haven't been impacted, luckily. But we just need to start trying to take our chances and create a little bit more. So, previously when Stewie Maynard was in charge, if we got thumped 5 or 6, sometimes that happened. But if we had a poor performance or a poor result, we tended to bounce back with a decent performance and maybe a result to follow. So it may be a loss, then you get a draw. Maybe a draw, then we get a win. We may get a loss, then we get a win. But that's not happening. We bounce into sort of losses, draws, and something's got to go our way. And a team potentially could get a bit of a beating from us potentially. But I can't see it coming in the next 3 or 4 or 5 games, Luke. We've got Forest Green, Barnet, Southend, Yeovil amongst those teams. So Halifax as well. So really, really tough. We could be going into October with not a lot more points than we already have. So we've got to stay positive. We've got to wait for these injuries to come back. We've had Craig Eastman come in from Sutton. Looks very good in pre-season, got injured, hasn't played. I think he'll be a massive difference for us in the midfield. Say a Darkwa up top. If he can get his shooting boots on like he did around Christmas time last year, it looks better. But how long do you keep saying, what about injuries? Mark White at Dorking, how long is he going to keep going on about injuries? Ultimately, you can't really worry about them because they can't affect the game because they're not on the pitch. We got to worry about who can get the game and be on that field or in the substitute on the subs bench. So slightly worrying. I am very positive about Wealdstone, so I think we'll be okay. But it's not looking as rosy. It maybe has done in the previous season when we've hit these sort of patches.
I think sides like Wealdstone, what might concern me this season is when you're getting into the winter months, that seems to be when sides like your Wealdstones, your Maidenheads start to struggle a little bit. They seem to always start pretty well because, it's new, it's the season's new. People don't particularly know what to expect from them. Where it feels like when you get into the winter months with a side that's part-time, you're not training as much. Also, that's when injuries start to kick in a lot more. You've got the FA Cup, the FA Trophy to deal with, and Wealdstone haven't even had any of those issues yet. So to say the way you started so far, I don't think it's been a disaster. I think after the first couple of games, you went on a little bit of a run. But overall, you'd probably say you look at Wealdstone, maybe there was a few games there where you should have been picking up a few more points to have yourselves in a little bit more of a comfortable position where you've been able to afford to lose games, because you've mentioned there about the next 5 games. I don't know what your thoughts are, but for me, if I was a Wealdstone fan, I'd be saying these are all 3 hits now. We should have probably got the points on the board to be away from the drop zone before this. And now it's just about being able to pick up the odd point or odd win there. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Luke. We've not got hammered in any of the games. We're not being outplayed. Small margins could have flipped it the other way. That's what the National League is all about. But we've hung in games, and we got 5 points on the board like many other teams have. So we're not cut adrift. It doesn't look like we'll get cut adrift at this moment in time. So we just got to be positive. Av has, the Maidenhead fans, even Braintree fans, Boston, Tamworth, even Ebbsfleet now, and the new manager. Everyone's got to be confident that a run of games will give them that number of points that can just push them up the league a little bit. But it's just tough to watch at times because the team's putting the effort in. There's no two ways about that, and they just need a little bit more quality in both boxes. Maybe a bit more of a settled 11, and then we really can see what they're about.
Yeah, exactly. We've also got Bob who's coming in and said, do you get why us Oldham fans are raving about Monf now, Luke? Yeah, I do think you were a good centre-half, to be fair. He did stand out to me on that pitch. I thought Kitchen were good as well for you. He always seems to be when we play against Oldham. He's always someone that stands out to me. I just think there's things with Oldham where I just think they're going to improve over time. Like I've said, I don't think they're going to be a side that's going to be playing, fluid football on the floor. I just think they're going to be a very much industrial style of team. There's very much what I'd expect from a Mickey Mellon side. People have to remember when he was at Tranmere, he got this side out of the division by basically hoofing it up to a target man and winning the scraps. And I think that's something that he's looking to do again with the likes of keeping the likes of Fond up there. And also Norwood coming in as well last season before he came in. I think for me, I just think that's the way it feels it's going to go. And, when Norwood's fully fit back and scoring again, that's maybe when Oldham will go on a bit of a run. And I think defensively, it does feel like you've improved a lot. It's just going forward now. And like I've said, when Norwood's back, that's a striker who's clearly proven it. And he's going to guarantee you goals when he's fully back fit. So I won't be too concerned with Oldham. I don't think they're going to be in the title race for me. I think they might be on the edge or might sneak into the playoffs again this season. We've also had, Keith came in and said, Paul and Luke, the best double act out. We'll take that. But what we're going to do, guys, because one of the topics tonight, we're going to come back to the live chat because I've seen loads of comments down, a lot from new people as well that have tuned in tonight. We've got nearly 70 people with us at the moment, which is great numbers, particularly because they announced it so short notice. What we're going to do is we're going to actually play an interview for you from Dean Brennan. Now, a lot of the viewers will probably have seen this interview. We're going to play it again. You guys can give your opinions on it in the live chat, and we'll come to that. And then, of course, go back to those who commented on other topics as well. And we're going to get our reaction to that. I've seen it. Maybe it's a good way to get my memory back on it. Paul, I don't know if you've seen it or not.
Oh, yeah, don't worry, I've seen it.
All right, then let's get it played then.
Yeah.
We've just played now 6 games where I recognise centre forward. And I have to be honest with you, I think our level of performance has been outstanding. If they don't want that, I'll move on then. That's what they want. Get someone else to do the job. Because I'm sick and tired of it. Just a miserable, moany lot. What's wrong with them? Get behind the group. Get behind the team. So I feel that way about it. I'm delighted for the boys, delighted for the players, delighted for our supporters that come up to Gateshead and clapped us off. But I'm hearing this out of here. I don't like it. If they're going to be negative, go off somewhere else and be negative. It's their money, they can do what they want, but I can say what I want on here as well and how I really feel, because I don't pull no punches. Moaning and groaning.
Yeah, and obviously just speaking on the football, for the 90 minutes it looked like a really good battle, a really good test between two top teams.
Yeah, we've got young lads that read the social media. I don't read it, I'm not on it. I've got young lads reading social media. I've got stuff on social media going against me goalkeeper. Does that help, does it? Does that help everybody? They're all geniuses now. They want to clap you off, don't they? Yeah. You know what happens in life? When you're in the tough times, you see the real characters, the real people. That's what I'm looking for. Character. In this group. Character. I want our fans to come with us with it. There's a message for you. All right? Do not edit that, by the way. I want that to go out, because that's very important. Because we're very open and very honest with our supporters. But when I'm hearing all negativity, when we're playing well, good goal by Altrincham, by the way, good goal on the counter-attack, fair play, good goal, good. Justin's a good player, pace. And I've got to listen to that moaning, I'm here. Just relax, I know what I'm doing. I took this team over, bottom of the table. Have a look where you are. Yeah? There's a lot of other teams below us. That's how I feel about it. I'm very, very angry and frustrated. If any fan wants to come see me, my door's open. Come in and see me. Have a cup of tea with me. And come and see me, and I'll explain where we're at and who's injured and what's happening. No Tavares, no Brown, no Kabamba, no Collins. Who else is missing? Coker, just come back. Get behind this young group. Look at Joe Roy tonight. Outstanding. Joe Grimwood, outstanding performance. Unbelievable. Chapman, what a player. Brunt, character. So I want us to get behind our players, not moan at them, not sing when we're winning. I want us to be a proper football club. All I ever hear is moaning about the chairman. The beer's not good enough, that's not good enough. Come on, man, get behind the group, get behind the team.
And you obviously in that you obviously.
By the way, there was only 900 odd fans here tonight. That's what it was announced as 12, but it was 900 here. Yeah, we're a big club, aren't we?
how important is it to keep the Hive the fortress that it can be?
Yeah, the help if we brought more than 900 supporters here. You know, if we can get 2,000, that'd help the chairman. That'd help us get a centre forward.
Big statement. Quite an out there kind of interview, you might say. He's not held back, has he, all, Paul? What's your thoughts on that then? Without being biased, being a Wealdstone fan, what are you
Listen, I'm not biased at all. He's got every right to say what he wants to say. I don't think it helps anybody. I think it shows he's a manager under pressure. Whatever he says, Luke, right? Whatever he says, he got them from the bottom. Yes. He's improved them. Yes. Has he done what he set out to do? I would suggest at the moment, no. They've got in the playoffs. They bottled it. They got to the semi-finals of the FA Trophy, bottled it. He's not being truthful to his fans because we got Barnet fans telling us that they've got a very small budget and the budget is modest. There's not a chance that Barnet are operating in the National League with a budget that's lower than the top six. Not a chance. The players they've signed, not a chance, right? You can't be moaning that you haven't got a centre forward after 6 games when you've gone and recruited 12 or 13 players, probably on good money. You can't be moaning when you've only got one centre forward on your books in Nicky Kabamba. Is Reece Brown a centre forward? I would suggest not. I've seen him play. He's a good number 10, not an out-and-out centre forward. Is Callum Stead a centre forward? No. We've been told by a Barnet fan he's not. He's a good number 10. So he can go and moan about anything he wants. They lost to Gateshead at the weekend. He moaned about the fact that 5 stubs could be made because it disrupts the time. He's moaning that players are digging out his goalkeeper. If you watch his rant on Saturday, he subtly was having a dig at his goalie because he said, the goalie's let the ball go back into the centre of the goal. He's not pushed it around the post. Fans feed off what managers say. Fans are like sheep, right? So they're going to listen to what he's got to say and follow what he says. He wasn't very positive about his team on Saturday when they got beat at Gateshead away. All of a sudden, when the fans aren't positive, he's then digs them out. I think the guy just needs to calm down and get on with his job. They're not punching like they should be. They've not done anything like they should have done. And at the moment, he looks like a man under pressure, and it's a little bit of preservation on his front. Since when has Dean Brennan, in the last 2 interviews or any interview here, dig himself out and say, have I made a mistake here? Have I made a mistake there? No, it's everybody else. It's the National League. It's the fans. It's his own players. So as far as I'm concerned, Luke, the guy's just got to keep his counsel and carry on doing what he wants to do because he's got every piece of resource there to get his team promoted.
There's things about not holding back, right? And to a certain extent, and we've seen it before with interviews. Cooper, I think a few seasons ago, did one and he didn't hold back. But I've never ever, I don't think, apart from maybe Mark White, seen an interview like that where it's been so honest. And I think for me overall, when you look at it, he's been truthful. Football fans, you can agree with this, Paul, are fickle. Really, really fickle overall. And you look at Barnet so far, it's early days. They're in a fairly decent position. I think they're 5th in the league at the moment, aren't they? After 8 games, still a long way to go. They've had their injury issues. Of course, they've got the depth there. I think what he's clearly getting frustrated at is the fans are clearly getting on his back and kind of was forgetting where they've come from in a way in the last couple of seasons under him. He's finished them in the playoffs since he's come in, apart from the first season where he actually took them from being bottom of the league and keeping them in the division. For me overall, I think it shows honesty. I think there's a lot of managers out there that you'd want to see an interview like that from, Chris Millington at Halifax. Maybe you'd say be the same. We look at the amount of fans that get on his back, and you consider where we've come from as well, Halifax. The amount of fans that get on his back, it's unfair. And he'd probably love to come out and say, look, the support's not good enough at the share like it should be.
The difference is with Halifax is they don't have the money. They don't have the budget. Okay. Yes, they might have the fan base that Barnet don't have. And I think that's probably something that Halifax could improve on.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the players that Barnet have bought and signed this season. On paper, we were all raving about it, weren't we? And listen, they've not had a bad start. They're in the top 6. They're 2 points off the top. So it's not an utter disaster for them. But from, Chris Millington can come out and probably bemoan the fact that he hasn't got the backing and the money, etc. Dean Brennan can't do it. Now he's moaning about the fans having a go at him. From the fans' point of view, you're right, fans are fickle, right? But at the same token, Luke, they're looking at what Barnet have signed. They're looking at the fact that they've got an opportunity to get out of this league, and they've lost 3 games already. They didn't lose that many more last season.
Mm-hmm.
And they were favourites for many to win this league with what they've signed on paper. The reality of it is the squad unbalanced. You can't moan about a full-time squad and the amount of players you've got saying you haven't got a centre forward. It's one of them things. So I think there's just an element of him, and I get the passion, right? And it's good to see that someone like him wants to do the job he does. But don't start giving it all that, come and speak to me, have a cup of tea in my office, I'll tell you where we're at.
No one get the opportunity to do that.
That's an utter nonsense. Because I'm telling you now, Dean Brennan, he wouldn't even walk off the pitch at the Vale because he was getting a little bit of stick off Wealdstone fans. So how's he going to deal with his own fans if they're sat in the office having a cup of tea and a rich tea biscuit with him? It ain't going to happen, Luke. It's all for show, right? Just keep your counsel, do your job, do it well, manage your squad, and go and win the league. And then turn around to your supporters and say, there you go. Wind your necks in. We're going up. We're going to win the trophy. But not after 6 or 7 games.
For me, you look at the crowds that Barnet get, and there's a lot of clubs in this. I'll admit Halifax aside for me, where I personally feel what we've done in the last couple of years, we deserve a lot better crowds than what we get. Now, Barnet are a perfect example. Yes, there's talks about them not being near Underhill. This is nothing against the fans who go, but with the money that they've spent and the team that they've had and the football that they've had on offer, not just this season, but overall since he's come in, has been good. It's been good to watch. Now, if there was 900 fans there on Tuesday night with the way they're playing at the moment, that's disappointing. Everyone's got to admit that. Now, if you're Dean Brennan, maybe you'd feel, well, what am I doing this for if we're attracting crowds like what they are doing at the moment? And for me, I don't know what your thoughts are, Paul, but wouldn't you say crowds like that are disappointing when you're managing and doing as well as what they are? I know there's talk about a budget, but...
Yeah, completely agree. And if anyone's been to the Hive, and this is irrespective of the history with the ground and the Wealdstone owning it and not owning it, it's a soulless place to go and watch football. And that's partly because supporters don't go. But the chairman's decided to get rid of a stand behind the goal. So he's got 3 sides to this massive stand. And they don't have enough to fill... the side stand. Do they not put them behind the goal and put the away fans? I don't know how they can make it any more sort of atmospheric, because there's not a lot of atmosphere that's created in that style of stadium anyway. It's a difficult stadium to create an atmosphere in, because it's not a bowl, it's not enclosed, and it's a lovely stadium to watch football at. But I can see why there's a disappointment there around the fan. What you've also got to remember, Luke, they're not in the London Borough of Barnet. They're in the London Borough of Harrow. So not even in their own borough. So you're asking over a number of years an eroding fan base to travel from Barnet across not across London, but a short while across London to go to London Borough of Harrow. Now, I'm pretty sure Barnet have done what they can to incentivise the locals around where the Hive is now. And it's a lovely facility for the players and for fans to go to. But they're not enticing that local community. And that's going to be really difficult, because what you're relying on is an eroding fan base from the original days back in Barnet. And I know they're trying their best to get back to London Borough of Barnet, and I don't blame them whatsoever. They need to be back there. They need to be where they belong. So it's going to be difficult for now. They've just launched an incentive tonight, football for a £5 against Fylde, off the back of what Dean Brennan has sort of put out, that, your club needs you scenario. Let's see how that goes. Football for a £5. Do they play Fylde? Do they win and they attract a few more players, a few more fans? So it's not like they're not trying, and they're a well-run football club. They've got a good owner. People moan about he's a good owner. He puts his money where his mouth
good
is.
Manager. You have to. I know you have. You have to admit a good manager. You have to say after what he's done over the last couple of seasons.
He's an okay manager, Luke. He's
a good manager of what he's done.
Listen. He's got them up the table, but they've not gone over that final hurdle yet. And we'll be talking about Barnet in a few seasons' time, like the Oldhams, like the Notts Counties, like the Wrexhams, where they've stuck in national. He turned around. He said, "I know what I'm doing." Prove it then. Prove it to the player, the manager, to the fans that he knows what he's doing, and get them promoted. Get them a trophy, because that's what they want. That's what Dean Brennan wants. Okay,
but you might. What I will
go
just
and
say.
Do it.
What I would say overall to that, and I know you'll probably come back and say, well, the budget is totally different, but I think Barnet have only recently in the last couple of seasons discovered their budget, in the last probably two, I would say, where they're actually spending quite a lot of money compared to the rest. Pete Wild, when he was at Halifax, he never won anything with us. He got us in the playoffs, similar to what Dean Brennan did. Would you consider Pete Wild as an average manager?
Where's Pete Wild sat next to you at Halifax? What he's not managing. So, he's not pulled up any trees, is he? I'm not saying they're bad managers, but you've got to go from being okay, good to sort of pushing on and doing it on a consistent basis. Clearly Dean Brennan was well liked because Swindon wanted him. Tony Cleanthos, their owners, turned around and gone, "We don't want you to leave, Dino," and he's backed him in the transfer market. He's now got to go and prove it. It's only 6 or 7 games in, and yes, he's had injuries, but they need to go and prove it. They need to go on a bit of a run here and start winning games. Losing 3 in the first 7 or 8 isn't what they probably expected. And he can, we can all come up with the excuse about who we play and who's injured. You've got to play everyone over the season. Don't matter when you play them. So, listen, it's not because I support Wales. It's got nothing to do with that. They've got an opportunity to be the champions. They were many people's favourites to be the champions. Okay. Yes, they've got issues off the field in terms of their fan base. That's nothing Dean Brennan can do apart from cajole that. But do you think that sort of interview is going to entice people to come along and watch?
Probably not. I'll agree with you on that. Probably not.
Because they're looking.
But I think overall, you have to admit it's frustrating when you've got football like that. I think he speaks highly of the man above him, who's the chairman, with the budget that he's got, and you're not attracting the fans to actually come. And you've spoke about it not being in the same borough. It's a bit like Halifax as well. When Pete Wild were here, I think he came out at times and maybe not in the same manner, but said, look, we should be attracting more fans than what we are doing. And it is frustrating because players, particularly at this level, the fans mean a lot. When you've got the support behind you, it means a lot to the players, in my opinion. Now, we've got a lot of people that have actually come in and put their comments in on this. We've had Declan who's come and said, love the interview, but that's is a person who's not a Barnet fan. The passion is there, but it's mad. He's calling out the fans. He's had enough. Yeah, it's just something as well. Maybe he has got a move lined up in the future. I know it's been rumoured as well. Toxic crowd issue was huge for Mickey Mellon last season. Let them know it's a fans forum and how it was dragging the team down. I think we've also had come in. This is greedy. This is great, really. Those that slate the players are just idiots. No, honestly, he's outstanding. His honesty is outstanding. We also had someone actually came in. There's something here as well. If I can find it, it might have actually been deleted. David's coming and said, being honest, Barnet have an awful fan base. Nothing to do with attendances, numbers, but a dead atmosphere at their ground. And then we've also had Jake who's come and said, it all depends what the Barnet hierarchy feel about it. If they support him with it, then it'll be fine. But some owners would sack him for this when managers have outbursts, even like a Conte at Spurs, etc. We've had give me passion like that any day. What an interview. We've had more managers need to be like that, in my opinion. If I was a footballer, I would want to play in front of as many supporters as possible. We've had feel it's always a dangerous game going after your own fans. It doesn't normally end well. Oh, Kevin's come in, Paul, and actually said, because you made a comment about the budgets there. Who would be the top 6 budget clubs then, Paul, out of curiosity?
I mean, listen, I'm not in the know. None of us are in the know. But you've got to look at the sort of players that are recruited by these National League teams, and it's fairly clear where budgets could lie, especially as it's a full-time budget. You've got to look at the clubs that have come down. So Forest Green, Oldham will be up there. Barnet will be up there. Possibly Southend now. The financial problems have changed. Who's that? York.
I said York, yeah. I think for me there'll be Oldham, Barnet, York, and then 3 for me that I think, and Forest Green Rovers as well. And Sutton, they're the top 5. And then maybe I've always wondered to see sides like Solihull's budget, because you look at some of the players that they've attracted, players like John Bostock as well. Josh Kelly came a few seasons ago from Maidenhead. They must have a bit of money to spend as well. So I'll probably put them up there as well.
Listen, like Luke, we're not in the know, are we? It's all presumptions. But we watch National League. We've seen National League recruitment over the last few years. You know which teams are full time. There's an expectation in your own mind about what players are going to be earning in terms of, they're going to be earning more than them. Listen, I would imagine even Wealdstone are spending more this season than they ever will have spent in the National League. Still going to be a small budget, but they're going to be spending more. Without a doubt. They've gone hybrid. They've got a full-time manager, full-time strength and conditioning coach. All these teams are having to spend more money to keep up with each other and help with the demands of players who probably could go and play in the EFL. And we need to, these National League teams need to attract these players. So there's going to be big money spent in this league. And, I cannot see how Barnet aren't in that sort of top 6, 5, 6, 7 spending money this way. Listen, I'll be happily told otherwise, but I just can't see that with the players they've attracted and the amount of players they have.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing for me that makes me think they've got a big budget as well is the fact that they've managed to retain a lot of the players. And I can't believe even sides from the leagues above haven't snatched the players up, because I know 1 or 2 have left in the summer, but, Hantigan coming back, I would have thought, I think, was it Mansfield he was at before on loan? I can't believe that he returned on a permanent deal. Now, that shows for me that they've got a lot of money to be able to bring players like that back as well to the side.
Consider, Swindon came sniffing. There was a conversation that obviously was had, because we know that he was stayed at Barnet, whether that was his choice or whatever it is, but there must be some sort of promise of, okay, if you stay, we'll back you. There's got to be that. There's got to be that type of conversation had. If it has or hasn't happened, who will know? But you, in your own mind, you've got to imagine, well, if I stay, this is what we sort of expect to be able to get promoted ourselves. So there would have been a little bit of that. Listen, they're not a bad side by any stretch of the imagination. They could still get promoted. I think 6 or 7 games in, Dean Brennan's just got to keep his cool and keep doing it, and not get as rattled as he did. This is what happens with football fans, and are you going to put people off? I suggest you probably are, because they might turn around and go, well, I'm not going to go and watch him. So we all have opinions on it. You've got to respect the honesty and clearly the passion that he has. Do you respect? Would I suggest it's professional? Possibly not. But that's a personal opinion. Does it need to be done right now? Possibly not. Let's just see how they get on. They come to the Vale in a couple of weeks' time. They'll probably batter Wealdstone, and it'll be cock a hoop. So we'll see. But who's to say that we don't need that sort of stuff that happens in the National League? As we say, it's the Vanna Drama League, isn't it, Luke? There's always something going on every week.
Talk about It's a good talking point, to be fair. Yeah, we'll move away from that topic now. We've got some great numbers at the moment, over 80 people tuning in at the moment. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you do subscribe, I think we're only 30 away, probably less than 30 now from 2,000, so it'd be much appreciated. There's a lot, I'm sure there'll be a lot of you who probably haven't subscribed yet. Also, drop the podcast a like as well so it gets out to more people. I think the next topic probably got one or two more before we get on to the predictions. Rochdale, now they're a team that I want to talk about. There's a lot of people that have come in and actually given their thoughts from other clubs as well on how they've seen Rochdale play this season. Now, I'm going to put the, on screen, the table, just to have a look. And we'll have a bit of discussion about the top three as a whole before we get on with talking a bit about, I think, Ebbsfleet and the new manager. Now, a few people have come in. Ben said, liking the title, Luke. Yeah, the title's about Rochdale doing well so far. Embracing the vision, I said, evening, Luke. Sorry I wasn't on the space on Sunday. I was so ill, but big win for Gateshead over Barnet. We've had, how do you feel about Rochdale? We're speaking soon. Kevin's come and said evening. Evening from the Shrimper in... I don't know where that is. And then we've also had Hiccup, who's come in, and he's given his thoughts on Rochdale, so it could be a good talking point. Rochdale look incredible. They made us look average at home, which is a place we normally don't drop too many points. If they play like that, they did, then they are guaranteed a top three finish. Paul, I don't think Wealdstone have actually played Rochdale yet, neither have Halifax. But when you look at them at the moment, currently sitting second place, joint top on goal difference. Yeah, what a brilliant job Jim McNulty's doing overall so far this season.
Oh, excellent. And I've just been looking now, we talk about lack of goals, the sort of goal scorers in the league. And I think Rochdale are the ones that are benefiting most. Devante Rodney has got 3, Cairo Mitchell has got 5. So, and another couple of guys have scored. So, their centre forwards after 6 or 7 games are doing what we would expect centre forwards to do. And I think they're taking advantage of that. They're clearly not too bad at defensively as well, because if you look at their goal difference, it's plus 10 after 8 games. That's not a bad return in terms of that. And they're only really being kept off the top spot there by 1 goal, because Gateshead have got a 1 goal difference. So very tight at the top. Forest Green, Rochdale, and Gateshead all with the 17, and York just behind. If York get an impressive win, possibly gets filed at the weekend, we might see another change at the top. But Rochdale, as we've said before, Luke, they've just gone along their business. They've sort of, they've got through those troubled waters of the ownership. They've given Jim McNulty a 2.5-year deal. They've gone very, very strong on some of their recruitment, having getting Rodney in, having got Harron Henry in from Charlton, having got Tarin Alarakia from Wealdstone, real attacking threat in those 3 alone. Just getting along and doing it. And that's the sort of club that if you support Rochdale, you'll be going, this is brilliant. No one's talking about us. They talk about Oldham and Barnet meltdowns and, Eastleigh being up there and York getting their crap together. We're just sort of going along and picking up results. And that actually, it's impressive to see them up there. So I'll be looking forward to seeing when I get the opportunity. And who knows, they could be top of the league. Got a tough one on Saturday against Solihull, but, they could be top of the league come 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon.
It feels like the balance is perfect there, because they're scoring a good number of goals, a healthy number, but also not conceding many either. I think they've only conceded 3 goals all season. And what you often see with sides either is they're very good defensively but struggle to score, or they score a bunch of goals but concede quite a lot. And that's what you might say about the likes of Aldershot and Barnet, you might say. So for me, the balance at Rochdale just seems perfect. Cairo Mitchell has come out of the block now in the last couple of seasons. I think he's always had the potential there, but he hasn't really proven it. Being in sides like Chesterfield and Notts County, where there's a lot of players ahead of him, you're always going to struggle to kind of set your mark on it. Devante Rodney back fully fit for me is a League One striker, I would say, when he's fully fit. And that might be a bit ambitious, you might say, about him, but for me overall, when I saw him at Halifax, he was great. He moved to Port Vale and he was good in League Two there as well. I think injuries has been what's held him back, and it's good to see now he's fully fit. And I do hope for him he can stay fit throughout the season. Kevin's come and said hello from New Zealand. Someone from the other side of the world as well. Chris is obviously in Melbourne in Australia, 6:21 a.m. Cheers for getting up early, Chris, and tuning into the podcast. We also had someone from Slovakia who's tuned in tonight. I love it when we all get these people from like different places. Yeah, we've had Bratislava, is that it, in Slovakia?
Yeah, Paul the Southend fan from Bratislava, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it when we get people from all over the world. But yeah, a lot of people are talking about Rochdale. Something else that we've had as well. Someone's asked, what are your thoughts on how Dagenham have been this season, and where do you predict them to finish come the end of the season? They're a difficult one. I've seen a lot of Dagenham fans. There's quite mixed feeling, isn't there, on them overall so far. Dion Pereira looks a player for me. A big win for them v Sutton, but the issue with them, and it's been for the last couple of seasons, it's just been consistency, hasn't it? And players, individual players as well, being inconsistent too.
Yeah, they have been a real conundrum, haven't they? They obviously got rid of their previous manager, and they Darryl McMahon, and they brought in Strevens, who's a good young manager at National League level. I saw him beginning of the season, look fairly toothless, but Dion Pereira is a real sort of find and a good player to sort of keep on their books. But are they going to keep him if they're not going to be doing so well? They'll be okay. They're not going to pull up any trees, Luke. I don't think they're going to be in the bottom 4 or 5. They got a good win last week, so you listen. They'll be okay, but I think they're going to just be that one of those mid-table teams that will win some, lose some, and be comfortable with not really threatening anything.
With Dagenham, for me, I want to know what it is that's actually holding them back from pushing into the playoffs, at least putting a case together to be in the top half even, because defensively, I never think they're awful. I just feel like they're very inconsistent. 1 week they can score 4 goals, next week they'll concede 4 and struggle to score. It's hard to say with them. Junior Moraes came back. I think on paper it's another one looked a good signing, but he's obviously not been fully fit. He's not been playing at Notts County, and he seems to have struggled since he's come back. Gregor Cox hasn't particularly lived up to expectation. A lot of the signings were players that were out of form there. And for me, so far, I think the highlights, of course, been Dion Pereira. But going forward, it feels like that they're lacking something as well, like a proper number 9. And maybe they lost that with Vinny Effingham leaving. But I don't know, with Dagenham, I think maybe that's what they might need, is a number 9, someone to replace Effingham or replace McCallum, who was there a couple of seasons ago. And I think that's something a lot of sides are probably struggling to find at the moment, is a number 9 that's prolific. A lot of people have given their thoughts on Rochdale. When people have come in here, someone's put, this is a good point, someone's put Rochdale fantastic. Remember their manager watching us, Gateshead, and saying they're trying to play like us, but not quite there yet last season. Looks like they're getting there. Yeah, I thought that against Rochdale, against us, particularly the home game, when we went away to Rochdale, I should say, they kept the ball very well overall, possession-wise. But it did feel like they were missing something. And, of course, we caught them on the break and they struggled to break us down. And that might be where now they've improved. I think going forward, they certainly have. I think finally, then, we might as well talk about Ebbsfleet's manager before we get on to the predictions then, Paul. Howie Watling, I think it is, who's come into the side. He's 34-year-old, previously coached, I think, as an assistant at Rangers and QPR. Spent a bit of a time in America as well. He's taken over an Ebbsfleet side that's only got 2 points this season. How do you see this one going? Of course, it's a young coach, but a coach that comes from quite of the top end of English football.
Yes, it's a bit of a left field appointment, I would suggest, in the position that they're in. There's not a lot of choice out there, I don't suppose, Luke, of availability or others, managers that may not want that type of job. It definitely is that sort of job that, if it goes well, it's going to look good on your CV that you managed to get them from bottom to being safe. The problem you've got, and I think, if you look at Wealdstone's appointment with Matt Taylor, is how much how much does he know this league? He's spent a lot of time in academy football. Yeah, he was a first team coach at Hartford, over in the USL, the sort of second tier of the American soccer leagues. And he's come back and he's been an assistant under Michael Beale at Rangers and QPR, which is a great level of football. But he's not. Does he know the National League? He's assistant David Kersley. Does he know the National League? He's been an assistant. He's played. The other chap that they brought in, I can't remember his name. Does he know the National League? I go back again to Wealdstone when we brought David Noble in last year from the National League South to the National League. His assistant Neil Banfield had been at Arsene Wenger's assistant for years. The top end of the English game, they came in. They were an utter disaster because it just felt like they didn't know the league. They didn't know the players. Does Matty Taylor know the league? Does he know play? And this is my fear with Harry Watling. He's going to be full of enthusiasm. He's going to be great on that training pitch because he clearly is a talented coach. Different kettle of fish when you're managing a team that's struggling at the bottom end of the National League. So a real baptism of fire for him. He clearly backs himself. He's clearly got confidence, or else he wouldn't have gone for the job in the first place. The board at Ebbsfleet must have some sort of faith that he can do it. We'll have to wait and see, Luke. If he does what he does, similar to what Wealdstone did when they brought Stuart Maynard in, it could be a really inspiring appointment, and this guy could take to it very well and show everyone that he knows what the National League is about and he can get teams to play in it. So, very best of luck to him. Great to see young English coaches getting a chance in to manage teams, albeit whatever level it is. So, good luck to Harry Watling. Good luck to Ebbsfleet. It just helps the league if we've got that sort of coaching talent in it. Mm-hmm. Let's just see how he gets on.
I think for me, it's a massive gamble because you've mentioned there about not knowing the league, and it's something that I'll agree with because, Tom's come in and said, what do you mean by not knowing the National League football is football? I'd say it's very different to the top end. At the top end, sides genuinely like to play attractive football, and at this division, it either goes either way if you've got the quality or not. When you're passing out from the back. And I think for me with Ebbsfleet, the issue I have is, have they actually got the players to be able to pass out from the back and be able to play attractive football, which I'd assume Watling's going to try and do. For me, you look at him as a young coach, like you mentioned there about him being very enthusiastic. I think he will be enthusiastic and he's going to try and get him playing attractive football. But on the football field, how are they actually going to do with the players that they've got at the moment? I don't know. We've had a few people that have actually come in. Go on, Paul, sorry.
I was just going to say on that one, Luke, what Tom's asked. It's a fair question. What do we mean by, does he know the National League? We get exposure to the Premier League, be it through Sky, TNT, your Fire Sticks, your live games, whatever it is that you do. So in terms of what we mean by, does he know the National League? Does he know who he's coming up against every week? Does he understand? I mean, it's difficult for him. They're playing Hartlepool at home on the weekend. Mm-hmm. Me and you, Luke, many others who listen to this can turn around and say Hartlepool will be very industrial. They'll be tough. They'll be strong. They'll be direct. They'll try and foul you. They'll manage the game well. They probably won't score too many goals, but they won't let many in. They'll play until the 98th minute. Does he know that? Mm-hmm. Does he understand that? Does he understand when we talk about, do they know the National League? If he's got to go and recruit players, does he know who he's recruiting? Does he know if he's got to go and recruit players from the academy setups or the loan deals from the EFLs? Does he know the sorts of characters that he requires or the characters required to play in the National League? It's a very skillful league. There's a lot of good footballers in this league, but it's powerful. It's strong. They're fit. I think people do the National League a little bit of a discredit. It's Division 5 of the football pyramid. They're mainly professional. He's going to know that, but does he know what's required in the National League? That's what we mean by, does he know the National League? We know it. We know the sorts of teams are in it. We know the sorts of players in it. Does he know that? My concern is he doesn't, but who's to say that since he's left his job at Glasgow Rangers or whatever his last appointment was, that he hasn't spent time watching National League, knowing that he's a next appointment and that's what he's going to go for. He's waiting for an opportunity. He can go in. So I've got a little black book of transfers, little black book of targets, and I've done due diligence across the board around all these teams. I know how they play, and I think we can, start winning some games.
You speak about the sort of teams that he's going to come up against. Hartlepool at home, like you've mentioned. Sutton away on well, no, they're not a plastic pitch anymore. I keep forgetting that they got promoted and they ripped that apart. But Sutton away, Maidenhead away. That is National League at its finest. Oldham at home. We know we've spoke about them and them being quite an industrial side. They are 4 tough fixtures for a new coach that's trying to implement a new style, which I think he will do. People have actually come in here then, before we get onto the predictions, would have been interested in Luke Garrard for the Fleet. I feel he'd go there? He's stuck with Boreham Wood during the hard times. I would have thought that maybe he'd be looking for a role at a side that's in a better position than that, or further up the pyramid even. Taking over an Ebbsfleet side that have got 2 points at the moment. I just don't think it'd be the sort of move
I'll tell you where Luke Garrard will probably end up. Back at Boreham Wood, because they sacked their manager today.
Yeah.
So Ross Jenkins has left Boreham Wood. I don't know what the odds are, but what's the chances of Luke Garrard, now that he's had a little bit of a break from the chairman, Danny Hunter, and they've probably got an opportunity to sort of decompress, have a chat, kiss and make up. It's a pure guess, but there's a good, strong possibility that he ends up back at Boreham Wood. So, but yeah, Garrard, he's too good to be out of National League football, be it the South, North, or the Premier.
Someone's also said Neil Ardley, and this is another one that's quite ambitious as well. Of course, he was at York, been at Solihull as well for me. It's hard. This is the thing, we talk about the manager and him lacking experience, but who can Ebbsfleet actually attract to come and take over the side at the moment? Like, are the likes of Luke Garrard and Neil Ardley too ambitious for a side like Ebbsfleet at the moment? And it's either going to go either way with coaches like this. If a Luke Garrard came in or Neil Ardley, you'd probably back them to stay up 100% because they know how to stay in the division. Where this guy who's coming is a young coach, he's played at a high level as well. It's a gamble. It's either going to go either way. It's either going to be a David Noble or he's going to do a Stuart Maynard like he did at Wealdstone.
The other thing you've got to consider, Luke, is these managers have to be paid a salary, and where are Ebbsfleet at in terms of being able to pay a salary? Could they afford the salary of a Neil Ardley? I have no idea what he would earn, but I'd imagine that he would probably demand more than a 34-year-old coach who's aspiring to be a National League manager. Yeah. That's another consideration. There's going to be targets on these chairman's sort of little black book or on the wall to say this is who we could go and get, but ultimately it's got to fit the budgets as well, both on and off the field. So, Neil Ardley, I should imagine, will be quite a good coup for any National League side. It's whether it's affordable and fits with what they aspiring to.
Yep. Right. I think we've probably wrapped it up with all the topics now. We've gone on for over an hour. Like I've said, there was a lot to fit in tonight. We're going to get on to the predictions now. We'll try and make it quick because I know, Paul, me and you have been talking for over an hour and we haven't even got onto the predictions, which is meant to be the main part of the podcast. But please remember to like and subscribe, guys. Still over 70 of you watching. Some great numbers tonight, considering how long we've gone on as well. Please remember to like and subscribe. Also, these are the scores on the doors. Of course, Paul, your page sponsors the Predictions League now. Would you like to give it a plug? These are the scores on the doors as well, if you'd like to go over them.
Well, the summer has come to a close, I think. We've seen the weather over the last few days. So anyone who's thinking about a late summer break somewhere abroad, or your Christmas break, Christmas markets, or even looking at 2025, then give me a shout. My wife and I will be gladly help to look after you. I've had 1 or 2 inquiries, so thank you very much to those that do listen. I've had 1 or 2 inquiries off the back of this, and hopefully we'll get those guys on board. But yeah, I'm more important, it's more important, Luke, the fact I sponsor the page, but it's more important that I try and catch you up, and I'm clawed another point back this week. Yeah. So, had you actually done your predictions for last night or Tuesday night rather than actually going to the game, I might be ahead now.
You probably would have been, because 9 points is a decent score as well. So I'd have had to have done something quite well to have beaten that. I didn't have time, to be honest. I'm not making excuses. I genuinely just didn't have time. But anyway, we're probably in a position to get on with the predictions. First game then, Barnet versus Braintree, as I should say. Barnet, of course, got a last-minute winner against Altrincham in midweek. Braintree, it feels for them, another side that are drawing an awful amount of games, struggling to win games as well, and kind of struggling to score goals. I think it's the same guy scored all of their goals, hasn't he, this season? Lisby, I believe it is. Of course, Innie Effing Young, there's talks about him. He's not scored yet for Braintree. He was quite a big signing for them. For this one, I don't think Barnet will particularly thrash them. I am backing them to win, though. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Barnet win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I think they're going to be revved up, aren't they, down at the Hive? And Dean Brennan's certainly going to get his chaps going. And I've gone with a 4-0 win for Barnet. I think they're just going to bounce back from although they did win, frustrations of the midweek. And I think they'll get a 4-0 win.
Yeah, okay, we'll move on to the next game. Remember to get your predictions in, guys. We'll put them on the screen as well. And you can also join in with the predictions league yourself, between yourselves as well. Count how many points you get up. I think it's 1 point if you get the result correct. Like if you said they were going to win and they won. But you get 3 points if you said they'd win 3-0 and they did win 3-0. Of course, if you say they're going to win 4-3 as well, you get 3 points like I did. We'll move on to the next game then. Boston versus Aldershot. Boston, aside from me, have picked kind of been a bit of a bogey side for a lot of the sides that have started well this season. Sutton and York, the two sides that they've managed to defeat, who both had, I think, respectable starts. At least Sutton did until they lost to Boston. But at home, they seem to be struggling a little bit at the moment. And playing against an Aldershot side, they're also quite inconsistent themselves. How do you see this one going, Paul?
Yeah, I've gone for, I think this will be one of the higher scoring games. Boston 3, Aldershot 2. But like you said, they both seem to have a real mixed bag of results. Boston have got 7 points, Aldershot have got 11. Sort of the early good start for Aldershot, whereas Boston had to sort of break themselves into leagues. But I've got a feeling Boston might win this and they'll win 3-2.
I'm going for a 3-1 Aldershot win then. A bit of a different score there. Next game that we will have a look at then, we will go to Ebbsfleet versus Hartlepool. We've spoke about Ebbsfleet, a new manager in charge, coming up against the Hartlepool side. Another side as well that's struggling to win a lot of games. Of course, they won in midweek away at Boston, actually. For me, the new manager bounced there at Ebbsfleet. Long way for Hartlepool. We've spoke about them drawing a lot of games. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for this game. How do you see it going, Paul?
There could be a new manager bounce, but I don't predict that. I've gone Ebbsfleet 0, Hartlepool 2. If you look at Hartlepool, they have only lost one game this season, which isn't too bad. They're in the top 7, whereas Ebbsfleet clearly haven't won a game. So the odds are stacked against them. So I reckon Hartlepool win 2-0.
Next game then that we will have a look at, Halifax versus Eastleigh. Halifax aside, another side, a lot of these sides are doing the same at the moment, drawing a lot of games, struggling to win them though. They've only had 2 defeats, but they've actually only had 2 wins. And yeah, I think playing against an Eastleigh side that start the season well, have had a few defeats as well now on the bounce. It's a hard one to predict. Halifax seem to not concede a lot of goals, I should say, but struggle to score. Eastleigh, it's a long way for them to come. I'm going to have to go for another 0-0. How do you see it going, Paul?
Well, I've gone for a draw. I've gone for 1-1. Yeah, like you said, Halifax, I think, are quite a attritional side, aren't they? They're not going to. I don't think they're going to set the world alight in terms of lots of goals and maybe be an exciting game when you play Halifax. But they're certainly going to put it in and not let many goals in. So, yeah, 1-1. I've gone with this one. I think it'll be not the most exciting game on the sheet this week, is it, Luke?
Last season, our games against Eastleigh were probably the 2 best games for different reasons. We lost 3-2 to them at home. We're actually 3-0 down in that game, and I thought we were actually going to come back. And then in the away fixture, we actually won 3-0. So you never know. Hopefully we can keep the trend going. I doubt that very much, though, the way we're playing at the moment, the amount of draws we're getting. Yeah, everyone's saying 1-1 or 1-0, to be honest. I think Halifax, if you're going to get points from them in the predictions league, they're the team that you're going to get them from. Forest Green versus Wealdstone then. Your side heading to relegated Forest Green, who've still started quite well overall. How do you see it going, Paul?
The odds are stacked against Wealdstone, aren't they? Haven't what, they they've won one in five. Forest Green haven't lost a game in five. I've gone with Forest Green 3, Wealdstone 1.
I've gone for Forest Green 3, Wealdstone 2. I think this will be quite an entertaining game, actually. This one. We'll move on to the next game then now. Keep your predictions coming in, guys. Next one that we will have a look at, Rochdale versus Solihull Moors. Rochdale, we spoke about them. Currently sits second in the league at the moment, at home again. Solihull coming into this game on a bit of mixed form, you have to say. I think they're a side for me that I think another side that will get better as the season goes on. I think the squad's clearly got the ability to be inside the playoffs, and I'd still back them to do that. Of course, going to Yeovil and winning there is a good result for them, especially with how Yeovil have started. For this game, though, I think I'm going to actually change my prediction from 2-1, so I'll note that. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for this game. How do you see it going, Paul?
This is my high scoring game of the week with the Boston one. Rochdale 3, Solihull 2. I think Solihull, it's really difficult for a team like that because they have really overachieved in the last couple of seasons, and they've lost some good players along the way. So it's going to take them probably time just to sort of readjust and do well. Listen, they've only lost one in the last 5, so they're not. It's not a disastrous start from there. In that mid-table with a lot of other teams around them, and they're only a couple of wins away from being in the playoffs. But I think Rochdale, they won the last 4, haven't lost in 5, and I think they'll continue that on Saturday.
We'll move on to the next game then now. Southend versus Sutton. How have you seen this one going then, Paul? Sutton, of course, fallen off a bit, and Southend getting their act together, don't they?
Yeah, Sutton have fallen off a cliff. I think they beat Wealdstone 1-0 and looked fairly organised, not massively exciting, but young side, energetic. They've dropped off a cliff, haven't they? They're now winless in 5, and I think my early season optimism that they'll go straight back up could be well and truly sort of shot to bits. And I think Southend are going to win 2-0. The team that just need a couple of wins now just to sort of start clawing their way back into that playoff contention.
I think Southend are renowned for being pretty good at home, aren't they, over the last couple of seasons? And I'm going to back them again. I'm going to agree with you, Paul. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Southend win. And I think most people are backing the home side in this game based on the comments. Next game we'll have a look at then. This is actually, honestly, I'm not just saying this. This is probably going to be a big game for both. Well, it's a big game for both sides towards the bottom. And I think if you're talking about these two sides, of course, they're not probably the most, this is no disrespect to them, but the most fashionable sides to talk about with the way they play. With the two sides coming together, it should be an interesting game. Tamworth last season, very good defensively. I know in 1 or 2 games, defensively, they've looked a bit vulnerable, particularly against Barnet. They're coming up against a Maidenhead side that are just very, very industrial. And that's what's kept them up every season. For me, I think both sides are going to cancel themselves out. I'm going to go for another 0-0, actually. I'll change that from 1-0 to 0-0. How do you see it going, Paul?
Yeah, I've gone for 1-0. Tamworth wouldn't be so bad if they didn't get sort of drugged by Barnet, and their goal difference probably that hasn't helped the goal difference. But is it an early season 6-pointer? It possibly is, isn't it? Because if Tamworth win, they'll go 3 points ahead of Maidenhead. So, like you said, I think both teams won't want to lose this. Tamworth are going to be the ones that have to probably go for it a little bit more, being at home. It's typically going to be one of those results that Maidenhead probably romp it because we know what Alan Devonshire is like. But I have gone with a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, both sides are level on points as well, both on 5 points so far this season. We'll move on to the next game. Woking v Oldham. Look at the amount of draws there they've had. 5 draws in the last 6 games. They haven't actually won, I don't believe, since they played you guys, Paul. And all of those draws have also been 1-1 draws as well. And I think going to Woking, for me, I'm going to have to go again, another 1-1 draw. How do you see it going, Paul?
Yeah, I've gone for 1-0. It can't be any other result, can it, Luke?
No, it can't at the moment.
So 1-1 for me. Woking picked up a good win over Wealdstone on Tuesday night. Again, from what I understand, wasn't there. It wasn't the most exciting. Didn't create a lot of chances. Got a penalty. Were able to convert that and get a good 3 points off of Wealdstone at home. So, yeah, I think again it's going to be a huff and puff 1-1 draw.
Yeovil versus Altrincham then. Of course, both sides have had quite mixed starts. I think Yeovil, you'd have to say, have had quite a respectable start, considering they've just come back into the division, sitting ninth at the moment. Altrincham haven't particularly set the world alight. I know you've spoke about having a bit of a tough start so far. It's going to be hard for them to replicate what they did last season, and I think they will finish a bit lower than what they did. For this game, though, long way for Altrincham to go. I think Yeovil will be able to pull this out of the bag. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Yeovil win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with the 2-2 draw. I think Yeovil defensively could probably be maybe a little bit better. I mean, the goal they let in the other night was, on the face of it, was a good goal that Solihull beat them with, but the defender made a bit of an error, misjudgment error. The goalie he caught off. He's like, there's things you can look at. So I think defensively, Yeovil probably has to be slightly better. Altrincham will always try and play a bit of football. I think Yeovil will. They'll try and play on the front foot. So I've gone for a 2-2 draw.
Next game then, York versus Fylde. Both sides, I think, overall are known to score quite a lot of goals this season, although one side in particular seems to rely on their goals a lot on one individual in Nick Horton. Fylde, a side that I had quite big hopes for at the start of the season, and they did win the opening day, but ever since it just feels like they've fallen off a little bit, overall, and they're in the drop zone at the moment. Me for this game, though, York being the home side, I think you'd have to back them to win. I'm going to go for a 3-1 York win. How do you see it going, Paul?
Yeah, that's exactly what I've gone for. York 3, Fylde 1. They're a team on the up. They've got themselves together. We've spoken a lot about York over the last sort of 2 years on the podcast, 2 seasons, and they're starting to prove themselves with a settled manager and some good signings. And, I think they're going to be a team that will score lots of goals. So, yeah, I think they'll follow up their win against Wealdstone on Saturday with another one, 3-1 against Fylde.
Dagenham versus Gateshead then. Good result for Dagenham overall during the week, winning against Sutton. Be interesting to see if they can kind of build on this now. Gateshead, like we said, still unbeaten. I still think they'll remain unbeaten, but I think it'll be a difficult game for them, for Gateshead, going to Dagenham with them pulling that result against Sutton out of the bag. I think this will have a lot of goals in it. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. How do you see it going, Paul?
I have gone with a Gateshead win because they do seem to pick up, results on the road. When you look at Dagenham, we spoke about Dagenham earlier, didn't we, Luke, in terms of what are they like, what to expect. You actually look at it, in the last 5 games, they have only lost 1, and that was against York, who, as we've seen, are doing okay. So I think Dagenham have to be slightly. They're probably slightly more pleased than we are as pundits, if you like, seeing them from the outside. And that was a good win against Sutton, especially winning 3-0. But I don't know. I think Gateshead are just going to be too strong and win 2-1.
I think that more or less wraps up the predictions then. These are the scores and the doors for everyone to have a look at then. Big game week for you. Probably for the first time in nearly 2 years, you might be able to take the lead after this game week, Paul. But hopefully I can hold my own. We'll have to wait and see. Also, guys, please check out our sponsors cards accepted. There'll be a link in the description. You'll get 50% off your order. Also, I know there's probably a lot of new people tonight. I've seen quite a lot of new faces in the comments. Numbers have been great once again. I think this season, to be honest, it feels like we're growing even more. On paper, you might look at losing the likes of Chesterfield from the division. I was a little bit fearful, thinking maybe we won't be able to get the numbers like we were last season. And to be honest, they've got even better, and it's great as well. And it was the same last season. I thought when Wrexham and Notts had leave the division, I was a bit concerned. So it's good to see that support is still there, and we're getting new faces in as well. Please subscribe. We do this every single Thursday, more or less. If we don't do it on a Thursday, we'll try and reschedule for another day in the week, which would usually be Friday. We do loads of interviews, got loads of stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks for you guys to have a look at. If there's anything that you'd like to see on the channel, then please drop me a message. Also, check out our Twitter space. We do every Sunday with another fellow National League podcast, the non-league full-time. They're over on Spotify. We both collab on a Sunday, and you can actually get your voice in on your team and how they've performed, where we react to that. So if you'd like to follow us over there, follow us on Twitter. I think it's basically my YouTube at. Paul, can they find you anywhere and your page anywhere as well?
Well, my Twitter page.
Yeah, and obviously
is at Pete Franklin _5 is my Twitter handle or X handle, and if you look up the at PTF Travel, I think it is. It's on Twitter as well. But drop me a message if you need any holiday requirements or you just want to chat football. Always up for talking about football or holidays, Luke.
Brilliant. And also, if you'd like to, I think you have to be on a computer, I believe, or an iPad or something, you can join as a member as well for the channel. I think it's like £2.99 a month. And you also then can use like custom emojis for your club in the live chat. As well, we're going to bring in new things in the future as well for you guys as well if you become a member. So the more members we get, the better things we can obviously produce with that, because there's more ideas we can probably come up with when we've got a wider audience. But Paul, this weekend you off to the game then?
It's undecided at the moment. I'm still just waiting on the kids' football fixtures. It's about an hour and a half from where I live, so it's not a million miles away. But I'll probably catch a match if it's not Wealdstone. Hopefully, I'll sort of catch one more local if I can't get over to Forest Green. But it's not somewhere I've been, so the kids are quite keen. So no doubt I'll probably end up going, but it's not quite confirmed yet.
I know my dad, when we're talking about Forest Green, my dad's just like, no, we're not going there because apparently it's just a nightmare to get to. But no, Paul, thanks for coming on tonight. Of course, I'll be heading back down to the Shea for our game versus Eastleigh. Hopefully, from a Halifax fan's perspective, we can get the win. Good luck to all your teams at the weekend, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye for now.